got my coffee and today's guest here with me, so we're ready to roll. Welcome to the Circular Coffee Break podcast, where we will be casually talking about everything circular and beyond. Now, my guest today is Dr. Claas Oehlmann, who leads the Circular Economy Initiative of the Federation of German Industries, BDI. With extensive experience in sustainability, resource efficiency, and industrial policies, Claas plays a key role in shaping the strategic and regulatory landscape for circular economy adoption in Germany. His work focuses on aligning industrial competitiveness with circular principles, fostering innovation, and driving collaboration across sectors to accelerate the transition. I'm really excited to explore with Claas how German industries are approaching circularity, the challenges they're facing, and the opportunities ahead. Welcome to the show, Claas.
Thank you, and thanks a lot for the invitation.
Perfect. Great to have you. And maybe to get us started, could you briefly introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey to circular economy and what led you to take the role of leading the Circular Economy Initiative at BDI?
Yes, of course. And my circular journey started about 13, 15 years ago. It was during an internship in Brussels where I had the opportunity to come first time in contact with the circular topic in an internship at the Federation of German Waste Management sector. And in this time, we had this European Policy Agenda 2020, Europe 2020, with its first resource efficiency roadmap. And there were a lot of elements which really were super exciting to me because we had the first time in Europe, in the European policies, the framing of waste into a raw materials topic. It was in 2010, 11. And since then, I never left this topic again. And after my academic career and my dissertation, I worked with resource efficiency, waste management, and circular economy, and now in the circular business world from different angles of the topic. And I'm really excited about bringing the circular economy, the concept which we have on the table, really to the business world, because I'm really sure that if we are not able to bring the circular idea of circularity to our businesses and our value chains and value circles, we will not be able to fulfill all these wishes which we have from the topic, like climate protection, raw material security, innovation, new design, product design, new business models, all these great wishes we have in line with the idea of circularity. We need to bring it to strategic business development, and that's what I really feel about, what makes me feel really exciting working on this now with all of our member associations, companies for German international industry.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Claas. And it seems the list of wishes and expectations to the circular economy is getting longer by the day, actually. There's more things, like you mentioned innovation, but there's also resilience, resource efficiency, environmental impact, societal impacts. All of that is basically brought to the wish list. And I guess the BDE is a great place to be, to bring that circular economy concept into the business, as the BDE represents a very broad spectrum of industries in Germany. What do you see as the biggest enablers, but also barriers for the German industry in transitioning to a circular economy? And do you see that there are specific sectors that are leading the way? And what are they doing? What are they doing right in leading the way?
Yeah, let me start with the barriers and then coming to the enablers and the opportunities. I think we are at the moment in Germany, but also in Europe, in a big, great process in which we transfer the topic of circular economy from a just environmental perspective to a market-based perspective, and that's sometimes that's a new view to the topic from the regulative point of view. And also for companies, bringing the topic from in the organizations to the strategic units and departments in the company. So where is my strategic business interest in circular economy? And that's a process we are in. It's a normal process from my point of view, which we have with all sustainability topics, coming sometimes from a more topic of communication and stuff like this, to a really strategic hard point of our development in companies and in policies. So we are within this process. That's sometimes a barrier, and we should not forget we are dealing in circular economy often with waste, and waste have potentially negative effects on human health and the environment. So we should not forget that by organizing this new approach of doing business with secondary resources, products, repair, refurbishment. And we have always the question, is it a waste or not a waste? And are there potentially negative effects, and how we should deal with it, that we should prevent negative effects on human health and the environment. So that is a barrier, because we have to be careful on the one hand and to be really active and bringing the materials and products and holding them into the loop on the other hand, and really see the potential in innovation. And yeah, we are something in between there, I feel, at the moment. And we have, and there we're coming to enablers maybe, or to sectors where we are, where it's a bit easier. If we talk about materials, for me, it's very clear that, like paper, glass, steel, that are materials which are itself have the great circularity potential, because they're more or less, I mean, depends on additives, but more or less easy to handle, and to bring them in second, third, fourth life. We all know that we have with strategic raw materials or plastics, it's not that easy. And mm, but we can, I think, learn. We can learn in for which materials markets are really well developed, and how did that come? I mean, the positive economic value, for example, and see how we can organize markets like this for the let me say problematic or challenging materials, some plastics or strategic raw materials. And on the other hand, we are in the process coming from this material view to a product view. And there we now have, I think, the whole discussion about eco-design and design for circularity is a huge enabler to develop really circular value creation in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Because when we start now to bring more circular products to the market, we will earn this, or we have the potential, we have the opportunity to earn this investment in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Because when these products are coming to the end of life, we have really the chance to make it better, more circular, more sustainable in the really whole product life cycle. So that's, I think, the whole debate about eco-design and new business models in these phases from the product life before it's getting waste. So like the repair, refurbish, remanufacturing, and the discussion about how we can implement business cases which reflect these opportunities. There we have really, at the moment, a good opportunity to enable new markets. It's all about market conditions and prices, I know, but what makes me really positive on that is that we are now in this discussion. Where's the positive business case, and what do we need? If it's not there for the moment, what do we need that we have the opportunity for companies to develop this new opportunities in the market? And therefore, that's for me clear, or the fact that we need framework conditions in Europe, worldwide. We need framework conditions because the linear markets, the normal linear system will not from itself become just a circular one because we wish it. We will need new framework conditions, which will bring a level playing field for companies to compete on in a circular value creation.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. There's a lot of different perspectives you already touched. But let's maybe next go into like the circular economy versus economic competitiveness, which is something you touched on, like the economical feasibility. A common concern is always whether the circular economy is actually compatible with economic competitiveness. Can I be circular and competitive, price competitive, or otherwise competitive at the same time? And specifically in a manufacturing heavy economy like Germany, you might see that very strongly. How do you see industry leaders basically balancing that, like the circularity and the profitability? And from your point of view, what are the key arguments that resonate most with business leaders when you talk with them as in your events, in your ecosystem with the companies you're interacting with?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, first criteria as we learned it for decades now, and that's in a market-based economy. Of course, it's always the first criteria is the pricing. Costs are the driver for the normal processes in business development and business and companies, and the cost efficiency, of course. What I think is if we want to connect these pricing mechanisms with our idea of circular economy and circular concepts for businesses. And as I said, from my point of view, we really have to connect the business world to the circular world if we want to really reach our goals. We have to talk about, let me say, 3 dimensions of this circular value creation. I think in our times at the moment, we have to talk about what is really a value for companies, and maybe one can then come to the point, how can we monetize these values? First example I would like to make is how can we say what's our price for good and stable raw material supply in Europe? So kind of independency from imports from third countries. And what do we think as a company or as Germany or as the European Union? What do we think is a price for having a certain level of independency and resilience? Because nothing, I mean, there's no free lunch. And if we really want to have positive effect from our circular policies and circular ideas on independencies and raw material supply, secure raw material supply, that will cost something. It will not happen just because we want it. And if we include this idea in our pricing mechanisms, from my point of view, that would be one important step to make circular business models more competitive to the linear ones. The second point is the role of circularity for climate protection. At the moment, it's all the potential which lies in scope 3 emissions and greenhouse gas protocol. We are not at the point at the moment that we have a really a monitorize the value of circular developments in companies, in value chains, in value circles, which are deep in scope 3. And it's not monitorized for companies if they take a measure for a new approach for circularity in product design, for example, or in substitution of materials. And if we are able to monitorize these positive effects for climate CO2 emissions, that would be a second step for me, in which we could connect the value to this climate protection approach, to circular economy, and to the businesses. And the second one, for me, it's not that or not so easy to monitorize, but the potential of innovation for European and German industry in global competition is, or we have to ask ourselves, where should we position our European markets, our industries, for global competition and for the next decades? And I think we have the technological equipment. We have a good network of science actors like our universities, other institutes. We have good ideas and concepts, and we have strong business leaders. So circularity for me is just an opportunity to give the European industry or position the European industry in the global competition, because we all know, maybe it's not that on the table at the moment, but we all know climate change will not be gone, because just it's not on the political agenda at the moment. So like it was 2-3 years ago, we all know our raw materials supply problems. We all know that we will need different consumption patterns in a world with 10, 11 billion people. So I think the chance just see the opportunities for the industries in Germany and in Europe in becoming circular, just because we need business models which are fit for 2050 is the third point I would like to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe related to that, I mean, you outlined 3 points, and traditionally, I mean, if we go back, I don't know, 5 years, the discussion was very much around the environmental aspects, and that was the only reason why circularity was discussed. I mean, back then, the term circularity wasn't that widely used anyway, but it was very much an environmental discussion. Now, a lot of other aspects, geopolitical resilience, resource efficiency, all of these come into the picture. Do you see the conversation in the industry shifting? Is there a different approach to circularity that companies and leaders in the industry have around these 3 aspects that you mentioned?
Yeah, I see developments in this direction, and as you have a good tradition in that in Europe, coming from the policy sphere and from the regulation. I mean, we see, or we have seen in the last years under the Green Deal from the European Commission, a number of really important pieces of legislation which brings the topics of circular value creation to a next level outside the environmental perspective. I mean, we have the packaging regulations, the battery regulations, the eco design regulation, the construction products regulation, end of life vehicles. That are all regulations now focusing really the whole life cycle of the products, and that brings companies to completely new discussion, because there are new units, new people from the companies are now involved in the discussions. The product designers, the distributors, the raw material sections, beside the people from the waste management or the problems or other environmental topics. So we see that there is a dynamic from this whole European Green Deal and now clean industrial debate, brings companies to think new about the topic of circular economy and where are the chances. And I hope we have the chance just not to come into the negative discussions that it's all regulation we have, or it's too much. We are not able to bring that to life. No, I think we have to now see the chances. Where is the new business? With, of course, with an honest discussion about what is too much and what is okay, as I said, for a level playing field. But these product-focused new pieces of regulations are a chance, from my point of view. Also, the sustainability reporting, CSRD, we have first time this E5 standard there that companies are obliged to report on circular data. if we are able to do this in the right way with standards, I mean, there are some missing and not too much data points, but really that people discussed this level of circularity in the company and are able to have some clear views on that, and then be able to start a process becoming better in circularity, if it is a strategic point for the company. For me, in this CSRD E5, I'm only talking about the E5 standard now, is a chance for companies, for European companies, to bring the topic of circularity to this strategic business development.
No, absolutely. And if you think about things like the double materiality analysis and all of these things, I mean, these are strategic tools at the end of the day that will enable you to manage risk, but also identify opportunities that you can go after. Now, you mentioned the very ambitious agenda of the EU, and there's a lot happening, like the eco-design directive, the producer responsibility, now lately the Circular Economy Act. Um, do you see any gaps between like the policy ambition, what's happening on the policy level, and how businesses basically react or put this into action in reality? And how is the German industry responding to these policies from your perspective?
Yeah, I see two main gaps or challenges for the next years. Mm, we have this bunch of new regulations now on the table, but um, the details which lie in this all these rules will be developed in the next years, as we do it in Europe with this delegated acts or standards from world of standardization. And there are missing a lot of details at the moment. For example, what do we understand as recyclable, or what is designed for recycling? How do we measure that between materials, between products? And we need some more definitions and rules, for example, for all the products, for packaging, for batteries, under the eco design regulation. What is our understanding of recycled content? How would we measure this? That's really important for companies to invest in technologies. The design for circularity topic, and how do we measure this, and what is really designed for circularity, is important for the product designers. And these rules, these definitions are not ready at the moment, and we will see how we can really develop them in a market-oriented way. And therefore, we will need the experience and the expertise from industry. And I hope that the European Commission is really able to integrate the views of the industry when they start, and they already started, the development of all these details. And we need a really clear balance between rules from legislation, details, industry standards from standardization. I mean, we have and have to connect it to the ISO, 10 and the DIN in Germany, and the freedom for companies to innovate. And there we need, between these three elements, we need really a good balance, because yes, we need rules, we need level playing field, yes, we need standards for fair competition, but we need also freedom for companies to innovate. And that, for me, that's the biggest challenge at the moment, to have this balance between the three elements to have really at the end, and that's what we wish for, functioning markets which are developing good solutions for circularity. That was the first, let me say, gap. Yeah, and the second one is, we should not forget the international level. I mean, it's nice and fine that our ambition here in Europe. But we are not alone in the world. We have global value chains, and we need our global partners for trade, and we are dependent on that, all in our international system. We all know geopolitically what's happening in the world, and it's not easy. But if we talk about things like digital product passports, we all know that this concept will only work with international standardization on data collection and data transfer and data quality. I mean, a lot of value creation is happening outside Europe. We import products, and if we will not be able to bring this digital circle beside, or to establish this digital data circle beside our material circles, the whole idea which we all have, I mean, I know that this discussion going on in Asia, in Europe, and in the US and the Latin America, but in the end, we will need a minimum agreement on standards, which and how do we organize these digital product passports, or how do we organize recycled content measurements. And the international level, I think we have to focus on in the next years, because under European Green Deal, we have had a lot of discussions with our within the European Union and European partners. Sometimes I had the feeling that we forgot a bit that there are another bunch of international actors working on circular solutions, circular ideas, and in the end, we will need an international dialogue if we really want to bring the circularity topic to our international trade system, and that will be needed because if you want to really have the positive effects from our linear international trade systems, we will then have to bring good answers to the table for a circularity, circular international value creation. So the inner perspective from Europe is my first gap, and how to bring it really to market and then we help markets all these ideas of new regulation. And the second one is the international perspective, where I see there are a lot of gaps at the moment in international dialogue. Also in this geopolitical, really not easy times.
Yeah, and I think no company can be circular on their own, pretty much, or very few companies. There might be a handful, but most companies need cooperation, and that's very often international cooperation, as you said. Now, at the same time, there will also be a need for systemic change and as I said, collaboration across industries, across countries, across supply chains. Um, what are some of the promising collaborations and innovations you've seen emerge around that, and where do you think more efforts are needed? You already alluded to the needs that the EU opens up and talks internationally, but also how do you see that across industries, across supply chains, in your conversations, and in the industry altogether on a global scale?
Yeah, what really makes me optimistic on that from our initiative, our BDI's circular economy initiative point of view, within the last, let me say, 5 years in Germany, there evolved a number of new platforms, cross-sectoral platforms, really with new ideas and networks for circularity. That really makes me really optimistic that companies started to engage in platforms and discuss circular solutions for their value creation. We, on the other hand, we see sometimes that they fear a bit intellectual property right discussions or competition law or some things like that. We have really be careful with that. But I see the number of networks, new networks in Germany, in Europe, where companies engage and discuss circular solutions. That makes me really optimistic. Consortia, and of course, we see in Germany at the level of universities a clear development in the engineering curricula and others. We see really new integration of circular economy, and that makes me really optimistic as well at the University of Aachen or in Munich or in Karlsruhe. Really different universities which really focus on circular economy in their lectures, in their programs, and therefore I'm optimistic that we will have in 5-10 years a really new generation of people which learned by heart at university how to design circular businesses, circular technologies, and I think that really makes me optimistic. That we bring this topic to the heart of the companies and have a new perspective on collaboration in business model, because as you said, that's clear. there are a few companies which can implement circular solutions and on their own. But in normal cases, we have long and integrated value creation, and there we will really need or really have to work hard on circularity in really the whole value chain. So I'm optimistic regarding our so let me say ecosystem at the university level, startup level, and I'm really optimistic about companies now engaging in collaborative platform. Like we are one of these platforms, but there are a number of platforms in Germany and Europe more. And what I hope is that on the political side, that the European Commission will use their external services, their international contacts to bring it on the table. We have seen at the national level that last year they started a German-Chinese cooperation with an action plan on circular economy. That is one example for me, starting the dialogue between industry countries, and I hope we can use this for discussing some minimal standards for bringing circularity to our international trade relations. And that would be great. And I think a good booster for circular businesses.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Claas. The coffee is unfortunately empty, and it's time to wrap up the episode of the Circular Coffee Break. But before I let you go, maybe one final question. You already alluded to it a little bit in what you just said, with basically bringing forward the skills and bringing the next generation of circular economists and circular engineers. That maybe you can talk a little bit more about how do you see maybe in 2030, 2050, the circularity in the German and European industry? And are there any trends, developments on your radar today for that time frame that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, I would say if I have a look at 2030, more 2040, let me maybe mention three wishes from my side for a circular industry or a circular society in Europe. The one thing is maybe uh, it's easy said, but the level of the usage of raw materials from the circular economy, as that we are able to raise is really significant. And for not only for plastics, but for strategic raw materials under or in connection with Critical Raw Material Act and so on and so on. But just to have really this idea that from circular economy or circular economy really is one really focal point for our raw material supply, and it is really a strategic one. That's one hope. So second is that we really have identified the potential from coming from the product design and the connection with new business models, like tracking the whole life cycle of a product and see where are business opportunities for repair, for remanufacturing and refurbish options. How can we really develop on the broader market scale new ownership models for products, and or the not new discussion between ownership and use phase and so on, but that we have really a significant idea in with that there are business opportunities, and that politics really has or understands that it's not just good management of waste, what circular economy is, that it's much more in these R strategies, as we say, than just the good and well-developed recycling system within the European Union and worldwide. And the third wish from my side would be, as I mentioned, that we have a new generation really coming from our schools, universities, which have in mind the circular idea as just a normal way of doing businesses, engineering processes, because we just need this because of our raw material management worldwide, the protection of our climate, and really have the innovation, the innovation idea in mind when we talk to circular economy, and that they learned it by heart at the university degrees.
Great. I think this is a great note to end on. Thanks a lot, Claas, for joining me today and sharing a little bit about the Circular Economy Initiative at the BDE.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great. And thank you to all of you listening out there. As always, we hope today's episode brought some new ideas, some new insights, some new perspectives. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on your platform of choice. As that basically helps us to grow the circular coffee break community and spread the word around circularity and best practices and ideas to accelerate our transition. Also, do not forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes. Now, the only thing for me left is to thank all of you for listening today, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you here on the Circular Coffee Break podcast.